Kia ora and welcome guys, and congratulations to all the new members, Steve. Yeah, and Rika, Dilly, for your appointments to council. Just like to also acknowledge Murray and
Foxy
and Jeremy and Bill, who did a great job on the previous community board and council. I'm president, or not president, but chairman of the Mercury Bay South Ratepay Association, and certainly love to give you guys an open invitation to come to our meetings at any stage, and I'd love to see you. Just wanted to basically give you an introduction to what's happening in Cook's Beach and what's sort of on the agenda for us. We've got a bit of a wish list that we'd like community board to know about and councillors. Biggest one probably is the upgrading, if you like, of the Puringi estuary where the boat ramp is at Cook's Beach. We've got a lovely barbecue facility there that had no problems, unlike Hahe. But it's very short on room, and at the peak of the summer there's kids and families for Africa. So what we'd like to do is chop a lot of those Peninsula pines out that are there, replace them with putikawas, which they have done a little bit of, realign the road, widen it slightly because it's a bit dangerous here at the moment, have a little bit more off-street parking, and plus do a good size new toilet block. Maybe improve the playground for the kids a little bit. We do have one around the road a bit that was put in by the developer Winton for Longreach, but the Puringi is really the go-to place for kids and families during the summertime at Cook's Beach. We haven't had a lot of investment lately in Cook's Beach, and that's probably one of our big ones. The toilets in Mercury Bay South, none of them have really been upgraded over the last probably, I think maybe Ferry Landing had a little bit of an upgrade, but we've got Ferry Landing, we've got Flaxmill Bay, and we've got 3 at Cook's Beach at each one of the reserves. The middle car park is where there's a dump station for motorhomes and caravans. Probably the second thing that we're looking at is the roading. We'd like to put a bit of a car park in front, opposite the business area in the village. It's quite dangerous there because there's no room on the road to park either side. People tend to park on the left heading into the village, and you know, it's dangerous for kids crossing and so on. They've done a little bit of work, put in a disabled car park there, and and also a disabled ramp where people can actually jump off the curb without breaking a leg. But we really need something on the other side, so where people can park. So we certainly like to get our speed limits changed in the place. At the moment, it's all 50, which is slightly ridiculous given some of the roads.
We have 1 minute left.
Those are our main ones. I must admit that a few years ago somebody came up with the idea of putting a hogging path down Cook's Beach. No consultation, just, you know, we've got some money, do you want a hogging path? And this is from the northern end of the beach down to the middle of the beach, which is probably 400 metres. The locals were aghast, saying, well, what a waste of time that is. We either walk the beach or we walk the grass verge. We don't need a hogging path to do it. And there's not much traffic on it anyway. But what I'd love to know is, obviously who came up with the idea. It certainly wasn't us. And where the money went that they were going to allocate us, because none of us being used anywhere else in Cook's Beach. So this fat lot of water money that they were going to use on the Hoggan Park, I don't know who ended up getting it, but it certainly wasn't us.
It's your time is up.
Oh, am I 1 minute? Oh, is it up already?
Yeah, you've had 5 minutes.
5 minutes goes enormously quickly. Can I just thank the people involved with the upgrade of Flaxmore Bay? It's really nice. Bollards are in, hopefully nobody will park on or through. But thanks very much and congratulations, guys. Love to see you over in Cook's Beach at some stage. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of questions before you. Sorry, to the chair, if I may. I'd just like to add, the speed limit changes, so there has been a paper put out with some proposed ones. Is that consistent with what you're looking for?
It is, Dave, yeah. We just like to see it progressed, make sure it doesn't get thrown out the back. But we definitely all for that at Cook's Beach.
So you're making submissions?
Yeah, we've made submissions, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just want to bring it to light again.
Reiterate.
Yeah, reiterate.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Is it easy?
Definitely down. Yeah, quite high, open road, sort of as you come into Cook's Beach Road.
And there's quite a few changes, like it's one step here and then it's a bit confusing.
There's the new turn into Cook's Beach and there's a lot of other stuff.
It's a bit weird,
More people around. It's,
They want to chop the pines in replace of Purukawa. So what's the reasoning there? Is it just to change the trees or?
the trees are, quite a few of them class C used by day. The old and, I mean, they just, you know, the Penasta pines, they're pretty rubbishy. And we get the old limb break off every year, but nothing grows underneath them. That's the problem. Yeah. Well, we'd love to bollard the area, have obviously parking area, but there's plenty of able parking that we can do elsewhere, or like very close. But we want more grassed area so that people aren't driving around where the kids are around. At the moment, the driveway and parking is all under the pines. We'd like to actually put that closer to the road or on the other side of the road and actually enable more picnickers and stuff like that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, cheers.
We now have Noel Hewitt.
Right.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to all the people who got it. First time, I think, in my time, I was 15 years in council, and I get abused like hell for being there by certain people who I won't name.
I'm looking for the off button.
But for the first time, the Eastern Seaboard is represented by the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, and that's good news. And also the fact that Mercury Bay has 3 councillors. Believe you me, in my time, for 2 councillors to go across that hill and battle for the area is hard work. So you've got a better chance now, at least. But a couple of things I think that are important that I would like to just share is that it does need more dialogue with people of the community, whether it's done through a combination of community board, council, and but they need to be more informed about the things that are going on, because believe you me, a lot of people don't know a hell of a lot what's happening in this area. But generally, it's I think you'll enjoy it. I think the team that's been appointed it looks to me to be a very good one. And I'd just like to finally say that I back up what John Maud said, because I had something to do with the bike park. It's the biggest secret in this town, and without question, it's a special place. And the future, one previous speaker said, is for the old people. I don't agree. It's for young people. Without young people, we won't survive. And so So our emphasis has to be on the affordability of housing young people and the education of them in our area. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Noel.
Thanks.
No questions? No, good job.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
No, serving.
Okay.
That's fine. Just give me a motion.
Thanks, John.
I'll see
Nice
the
to
public
see you.
speakers.
Thank you.
Also do this part. Just the Mercury bit, oh, that one.
Just get a mover in a second.
Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? We've got this. And Rika. The Mercury Bay Community Board receives Marguerite, Richard, Kenny, John, Nera, Paul and Noel Hewitt as speakers in the public forum. All of those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Carried. Okay. Item 1.7, items not on the agenda. Are there any items to add to the agenda?
The items have been raised, thank you.
Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Oh, we don't need a mover and seconder. There's no items, thank you.
Okay. 1.8, conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest? Yes.
Ms. King, you want to raise a conflict of interest regarding?
I'm right in the midst of that cycleway, that proposed cycleway.
So conflict, non-financial conflict of interest for item 2.2, the Mercury Bay Cycleway Development Project. Perfect.
Cool. So item 2.1, Mercury Bay Community Board CAPEX Work Program 2022-23. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move that.
Ellie. And a seconder? Yes.
And we have Andrew Foden on the line to speak to the report.
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, everyone.
Yara.
You're
I have a question.
Is he going to do an intro or is he just asking for questions? Do you want to do an intro, Andrew, first?
I can do, yes, a brief one.
Yep.
First of all, good morning to everyone, and congratulations to all of you on your appointments. The work programme is something we update and issue every month, and the projects on the project descriptions on the left-hand side are taken from the annual plan / long-term plan. So these are projects that are allocated to the Mercury Bay and many and various. We're at really relatively early stage of the annual programme of work. Some projects are more advanced than others. Some are still in their planning stages. Some are just about to be completed. The major one we have at the moment in the district is the refuse transfer station on Mowai Road. We've had, without trying to sound as though I'm just giving excuses, but these are reasons, we've had some significant delays on the procurement of materials for that project, and that have been resolved only recently. So I will be, for all members of the community board, issuing a programme, I would say probably during the course of next week, to identify all the work stream items and when we expect the project to be finished. Yeah, but the contractor is on site right now. He's on site now and he's starting the work on the stormwater drainage. We've had a few challenges with the ground, and for your information, the material that's coming out of the marina, the rock, and some of the concrete bunkers that we have redundant have been located on site, and we will be putting a temporary crusher on site to crush that material so we can use it to negate some of the ground condition challenges that we will have across the whole site. So the concrete is free, and the rock is basically free as well. So our contractor will be crushing that material into a stockpile for use on the site. The biggest risk on that project is the ground conditions, and we're already experiencing some soft spot areas that we're going to have to use that additional material on. We have a one-page summary of the RTS and the Sheriff Block and the Matarangi wastewater treatment plant that I'm not heavily involved with, that is probably part of the package of information that you have in front of you. On the 7th of December, there's a site visit to the RTS and the Sheriff Block that I will be taking you around. Sheriff Block basically looks after itself. Waterways, it's a 10-year project, and Waterways have got 300,000 cubic meters of material to shift from their working site, and that project has started, albeit delayed at the beginning of the calendar year and recently delayed because of the wet weather. But you will get monthly reports from me on the project, and on the 7th of December, Peter Abramson from Waterways Limited will take you on site and show you what they're doing. The report you've got in front of you is comes from their engineer who's working on the project and is part of the contract we have with Waterways. So the work programme really speaks for itself, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have with regard to any of the items. Some of them I'm not very close to, some of the Parks and Reserves ones, but any answers, any questions that you ask me now, if I can't answer them, then I will arrange for email answers to be sent to Heather and Esther for distribution.
Okay.
I have a question, and it may not even be for you, Andrew, it might be for Dean. Have we got close to appointing a project manager, I think is the title that we were using for the Esplanade?
No, we don't. We have a job description and an advert drawn up. The concern is that year one was to be funded by reserves, and we're not in a reserve position to fund that at the moment. So we needed to wait for the October financials to come in and to work with other parts of operations to see if there's any savings in their projects. We have identified a potential saving that will allow us to appoint a project manager, but finance and the operational group that may have the saving haven't confirmed that we're good to go yet. So at the moment, we haven't put an advert out, and that's the position for the project. We will also visit the project on the 7th of December on the tour.
Okay.
So hopefully I can give you a more positive update at that point.
Perfect. And just a quick, this is just really semantics. I thought we talked about calling it, I can't find it, Esplanade redevelopment, not reclamation.
Because the red flag that reclamation was.
But that's just a tiny.
Through the chair, Andrew, the Whitianga Future Water Source Investigation update will be provided to council in November. I read that as perhaps at this meeting, but obviously it's not ready.
No, I don't believe. Sorry, I don't believe so. No, I'll look into that and I'll let you know.
Yeah,
Let you know when you can expect to receive it.
beautiful.
Apologise for that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
A very good point.
Rita?
I would also like to mention that we've got some emergency works up at the water treatment plant. One of the reservoirs, the timber reservoirs, failed, and we are in the process at the moment of putting a new steel tank with a resin coating inside on site, and to be completed prior to the Christmas break, so there is no risk of lack of water in the Mercury Bay area.
I have another question, if I may. Again, I think you're off the hook, Andrew, and it may be for the room. I see that we have marked Hot Water Beach surf lifesaving donations as complete. Has there been communication back to the Hot Water Beach surf lifesavers?
108. So I have talked briefly with Gary, and I haven't gone back to him yet at this point, but basically when I did speak to him, he had said he'd never been supportive of the donation system that had come from, I think, Gary Fitzsimons at the time. What he's really after is a lump sum amount of money, which would have to go through an annual plan or long-term plan process if you're going to assign an amount of money. So the QR code process, I have talked to finance about the process with the meter, because it's only got a single revenue stream, and then we have to go through a whole process of taking that money, providing it to somebody else. The QR code system, that's at a cost as well. And if we're going to do a QR system, really, we should be doing it for a lot of, what John Ward was saying, a lot of community groups, potentially, not necessarily just Hot Water Beach Surf Lifesaving. So
they could establish their own QR
they could
code
establish their own
out there.
QR system out there. There would be nothing to stop anybody doing that. So for the aspect of the fact that it's for the donations, that's the rationale behind why I closed it. And I think if the board wanted to progress a conversation about funds for the Hot Water Beach Surf Lifesaving, that would be through a different mechanism.
And then following on from that, the Hot Water Beach bus parking, that line item doesn't allude to...
No, I have to put my hand up and say that has been on the back burner, and I haven't progressed that.
Yeah, but just the detail in there, is that meant to sort of give... we were looking at the bus parking revenue going to the surf license?
That would be part of the whole thing.
So this is just a blanket catch-all?
At the moment, it's just a blanket catch-all. The car park has been sealed. There's markers, marking places there for buses, but we have to try and contact bus companies about parking there.
Right.
And it also requires removal of the bus parking bylaw area at the by the store, I think it is. So it's also like an education thing as well. We have to go out to those bus companies, say from now on it'll be this. So we can't just say you now have to park there and pay this. We need to have a bit more. And put my hand up, that hasn't progressed at this point.
Maybe even just a sign from 1st January, this will be the new thing, and it be a pay and display for buses.
I think we need to do a little bit more. We have talked about whether or not it's simply that there'll be some parking meters there and the buses have to park there and that one's removed, or whether we work more in the rationale of the Department of Conservation, where we have concessions for buses to park in a particular location. So both of those options have been marginally discussed
Yeah.
and gone round in
Need some
circles a little
time.
bit. So we just really need to, one of the things that we're going to do is make contact with the Department of Conservation. So like, how does that work for you guys? Because they have concessions for buses. You know, they might have a concession for here, but also Queenstown, and we don't kind of want to get into that detail. But so there's a lot more consideration to be given, and it has been put back a little bit with workload.
All right, thank you for that update.
Any further questions? Okay, the Mercury Bay Community Board receives the Mercury Bay Community Board CAPEX Work Programme 2022-23, report dated 31st October 2022. I put the motion forward. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None carried.
Thanks, Andrew.
Actually, perfect timing, he's frozen and dropped down.
He's gone.
He's frozen and dropped.
Oh, okay, item 2.2 is the Mercury Bay Cycleway Development Project. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mover, Rita and Kelly. And we have a speaker. Ed Bowen.
It is online. On
look
behalf of George.
Look at Ed, he's
His
somewhere
report.
fabulous.
He's speaking for him.
Yeah, just said on behalf.
Excuse me, I'm getting cold.
Turn it off.
Sorry, that's me, I'm always hot. Go ahead.
Kia ora.
Good morning, board. First of all, congratulations and welcome. If I can take the report as read, if I may, I'd like to talk you through some of the background on this before you make a decision. The Mercury Bay area is the only area in the council that actually has a cycle strategy that's been developed. This was developed some time ago, and as a result of requests from the previous board and from the groups that were originally consulted on the strategy, we've looked at the options for cycleways within the Mercury Bay area and identified the site that you see in the report as the one that people wanted addressed on the first instance. We've looked at a number of options on the cycleways or the ways of providing cycleways on the routes, and looked at the budget provision that is available or was available from the board. We've also done a local public consultation on the various options provided. You can see that in the attachment to the report. The preferred option was option 1, which is also the least expensive option. This will result in the loss of parking along the road, as will option 2. Option 3, which is the most expensive option, provides an off-road cycleway, basically utilising the existing verge and widening it. This isn't achievable within the budget that's been provided at the moment, but if the board chooses to do so, it could form part of a long-term process of creation of cycleways around the Whitianga area. Option 4 is obviously not to do any of the cycleways. Now, the one thing I should stress is that in the public consultation, although option 1 was the favoured option for members of the public, an equal number of members of the public said that they didn't want a cycleway. That may well be associated with the restriction in parking that would be associated with options 1 and 2. So, with that in mind, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Through the chair, when you look at the graph on page 121 of the packet, if you add another option and no cycleway together, you actually get quite a compelling number of respondents, don't you? So that pie graph is quite compelling. To me, option 1 doesn't seem to have enough support and I know it is a cheaper option, to warrant that. And I've had concerned members of the community speaking about the parking, like for example on a Sunday morning, I know it's not a school day, you've got is it the Baptist church down there, and you've got cars both sides of the streets on Cook Drive. I personally prefer having, the idea, nobody's died on the Hoggin Path on the waterfront, and I quite like the idea of a shared pedestrian cycleway, and that being a long-term project linking all of the well-used areas of the town.
Okay. So, yeah, following on from what Dali has just said, option 3.1, which is a shared path, I see that we have a shortfall if we were to combine those budgets or potentially bring that second budget forward. We would have a shortfall of about $60,000, and I'm sure we could talk creatively about potentially using some of our footpath budgets and things. But I see a wider share with care, leaving the road itself, because it's quite a narrow road. It feels like, old school beachy Whirianga. It's quite a narrow road, so absolutely not removing any parking or driving capabilities from the road, but developing that share with care path as a longer term, not longer term, like in the next couple of years. Yeah, staged. That would solve the issues that the school and that cycling group initially brought to board when the cycle strategy work kicked off.
Through the chair also, it says a shared concrete path 2 metres wide. Is there a thought about having a Hoggin add-on? I know you would have a mix of materials which may not be aesthetically pleasing, but is that a cheaper option to have a, if the footpath's currently 1 metre wide, that there's an adjacent metre?
Can I just add to that? I think it would take scootering away, which would then, lots of kids get to school on their scooters and things like that.
They scooter the Hoggin path, don't they?
It's really hard to do that, but I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on the cost.
If I may, through the chair, the Hoggin path would be cheaper. From memory, on previous examples, it's about half the cost of a concrete path. One thing I would say is that in urban areas, such as we've got in Whirianga, the preference would have to be for concrete paths basically for usage. 1 metre path is sufficiently wide for a person in a wheelchair, but if you have someone then riding a bike down the side, they would be moving in and out of the Hoggin path on the side of the road. So my preference in that case would still be to go for a full width concrete path.
Cool. And all the intersections with driveways as well, when you've got the Hoggin sort of coming in the driveways.
Yeah, true.
I think it gets a bit messy.
Interested too, Ed, the comments around where the proposed path, if we did back option 3.1, crosses the road. I think that if we go down that pathway path, there's going to have to be a really significant, I know, terrible Kate, a really significant engagement with the school and some education around that, because already the little people sort of scoot off the path and right onto the road and don't give any sort of notice to the intersections, let alone people backing out of driveways and things like that. And I mean, Bess is in that area, and you must be really aware that morning and afternoon that you've got to be so careful crossing the footpath in a vehicle.
But you would have to be anyway.
Yes, you would.
Yeah.
No, so but what it's noted in the report is where it crosses roads.
Roads, right.
So when kids are on a footpath, they have a false sense of security, whereas if they're on the road, the car has to give way to them.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So there'd have to be some sort of education program around it.
If I may, through the chair, we've already consulted the school on the proposals for the path. They're aware that there may be a need for education. There is also engineering methods, shall we say, to make sure that cyclists take more care at junctions.
Yeah, right. Dismounting things. So may I propose option 3.1?
You are I think Danny Daly was the mover and you were the seconder. So if you're both happy to amend the motion to option 3 to install a shared concrete path 2 metres wide by 470 metres length connecting Joan Gaskell Drive to South Highway, we can put that motion forward. Do you need to indicate any information about staff reporting back to the board regarding options to secure the budget, shortfall budget?
Yes.
So I've added that as well.
And also, through the chair, I'm aware that Reka and I have done a lot of talking and questioning, and I'd like to ask the chair to throw that discussion open.
Can I please ask the difference in particular between option 3.1 and option 3.2?
If you'll just bear with me for a minute whilst I pull it up on the report.
It's the existing.
They both seem to involve using the existing footpath, but there seems to be a very big difference in cost between 3.1 and 3.2.
Good point.
If I may, the option 3.1 is construction of a shared path, which is correct me if I'm wrong here, George, is on the opposite side to option 3.2, which is widening of the existing path. In option 3.1, you would in effect have a footpath on one side of the road and a shared cycleway footpath on the opposite side. That's the recommended option or recommended method of construction of cycle paths in urban areas where you're trying to construct a shared path. It gives more surety to pedestrians as well, as they then have the option of using a footpath that is solely for the use of pedestrians and disabled users.
So one is construction of a new path versus widening of the existing path. And so they'd be on opposite sides of the road. Does that make it clearer?
So 3.1 is the
Whole new path.
Whole new path on the other side. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why they're almost doubling in cost.
If I may, through the chair, the other item you should consider with option 3.1 is that there are less junctions to cross in that design. So it would provide a better cycleway route for cyclists.
And just through the chair, if I may, the question that I've got is what the drivers for this were in the first place. If I could just understand some of the background as to where this original proposal came from, and particularly the school itself, and what input that they have actually had in putting forward their views about the need for this facility.
If I may, through the chair, the drivers were based on a request by cycling groups in the Whitianga area for cycle paths around the town and the surrounding area. That resulted in the development of the Mercury Bay Cycleway strategy, which I have to admit lay dormant for a number of years before the groups again requested the previous board to resurrect it. We followed that, undertook public consultation with the cycleway groups and with the school on the need for cycleway. The school has been involved in this, and they have identified that there is a desire for an increased amount of pupils to use alternative modes of transport than cars to access the school. And they see the cycleway as one of those prime methods of access. The routes that we've chosen serve the majority of the urban areas to the south of the CBD, and would act as, if you like, a primary cycle route with then access from side roads being normal cyclone path, if you like.
Rika?
If I may, and Ed, sorry, through the chair, correct me if I'm wrong, but the principal sat on the Cycleway strategy group?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, so John's been really involved.
John who?
Sorry,
Right.
the principal.
Oh, that John, right, okay. Yes, very.
Any further questions?
Just a comment for the members here. It just seems to me that there are 197 responses to the public consultation. The school has a roll of approximately 1,100 or 1,200 pupils, and if you count the passage of pupils into the school in the morning and out of the school in the afternoon, that's over 2,000 passages over a period of 5 days, over a period of a year, over a period of 10 years. And then you look at the 10-year stats for cycle accidents, it's minimal for that period of time. So I find difficulty in seeing the need to go to this Cycleway approach. Also, I might have thought that if the school was really looking for it, for such a Cycleway, then perhaps at the public consultation there might have been a bigger number of submissions rather than 197, bearing in count the size of the school roll. And finally, of the public responses, 103 out of 197 favoured no Cycleway or another option, which seems to me to be quite a clear majority.
I suppose through the chair, what happens when you do get elected to a body that's been in existence for some time, you get a project like this that has got history, that had you been there right at the beginning of that, then you would have been able to have that input, but the thing takes on a momentum of its own and it's already gone through the consultation, had the strategy identified, and whilst your points are valid, I think we're at a point where we have to find that solution. So sadly, it's the way democracy works, that if you'd been there at the ground level and been able to express your concerns, it would have maybe had some impact.
Oh, through the chair, I think democracy works by people having a vote and saying whether they agree with something or they disagree with it.
Yeah, true.
And the history really is to be taken into account, but ultimately it's up to each individual to make that decision.
We do have a strategy though that we have to honour.
Rika?
And if I can add, it has been through a long-term plan and then an annual plan. It was an arrow. Yes, so there's a level of expectation, I guess is what I'm saying. We've had these annual plan and long-term plan conversations, we've worked with this group, so I feel like there's a level of expectation that has been established. But you might be able to clarify that, Ed.
If I may, through the chair, it has been considered under the long-term plan.
Yes.
My understanding is that on a district-wide basis, it was not deemed to rank sufficiently high enough to be funded, which is why the community board took the action of looking at funding it locally.
Can we take the motion to vote?
Yeah, is it 3.1?
Yep, through the chair, as a mover with Delhi, seconded by Percival, I've amended that to approve 3.1 to install shared concrete path 2 metres wide connecting Gaskell Drive and South Harbour East, and then request staff report back to the board regarding the options to secure with a shortfall budget of I don't know the exact figure, but I will put it in there for you. You can take that to a vote now, Chair.
Okay.
It's on screen.
Cool. So I put the motion forward. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion's carried.
Okay, motion is carried.
Oh, excuse me, can I just have a count on that?
Yeah, certainly. Can we get those in favour? Raise your hands, please. Sorry, you do have a declared conflict of interest. We've still got 3 to 2. No. Oh, sorry, I didn't say you in the corner. Were you against? Okay, so we are at a tie. Apologies, John, I missed in the corner there. We have a chair's casting vote, so you get to make the final call there, Chrissy. Unless we want to try another resolution, we can.
So you guys are against the bike path completely or just that particular option?
Yep. Chair, we could also look at bringing the report back at a later date. If that's more suitable, we could.
I don't see
about that.
I think, Chrissy, to answer through the chair, the question that was raised a minute ago, I'm not opposed to some form of that, but I would like to have more information, I think, before any final decision was taken in regard to an option 3.1 or 3.2. So some more detail, I think, would be helpful from my point of view.
Do you know what form of detail you would like? Just the overall costs and everything and how we would fund it?
Costs, practicality.
Yeah.
You know, it is quite. It's not conclusive when you look at the numbers, and I'm also very conscious of the feedback that I've had, on a very busy road to do anything which adds any complications to people being able to move around.
Okay. So how do we do that? So if we want to look at option 3.2 as well.
Yep. We can leave this motion on the table and we can defer to the next meeting. Are you wanting to defer to the next meeting, or you wanted to do a second motion with a different option? Like that. Yeah.
I think. Well,
yeah, if you're wanting to do a second motion, you can just we can go against the motion, and then we can raise a second motion again with a different option and go to vote for that option instead.
Well, I guess we would be looking to councillor to come up with the motion. If he's opposed to this motion, is that how that works?
Yep.
Or through the chair, what I'm hearing is further investigation of how we've got to this point and detail around those options.
Potentially, isn't that just reading the cycle strategy?
Yeah, I'm also through the chair quite keen to hear from Dean. I think who has some input into it as well. So.
Through the chair, the only thing I was going to say is with the structure of the boards and your regular meetings every 6 weeks, we also are going to start introducing the community networking time, which is a chance for you to receive briefings and go on site visits and that type of stuff. So just an option for you is that if there is more detail required, then we could ask Ed if he's happy to provide a briefing at a later date or go on a site visit to look at this topic in greater detail. That's if you're not happy to take the decision today.
Through the chair, that I'd like to move an amendment in which we postpone the decision while we take an opportunity to have a closer look.
Yep, just through the chair. So if we get you, we'll vote against the motion. We can, the motion's lost. We can then raise a new motion to defer the decision. So
you're not going to use
cycle strategy and stuff. Yeah.
To use it just so the motion's lost, so we can raise another one.
Okay. So whatever.
Okay, so I'm just going to bring something else up on screen. If you bear with me 2 moments.
You need a double. Okay.
more time to consider the history, to consider.
The history, I think, is site and to take an opportunity to cite this, and I'd really particularly like to hear from John Wright in regard to it, or someone from the school who could provide a little bit of background in regard to how important it was for them.
In Caroline, same? Yeah, do you want to oppose that motion and what would you like to find out, maybe?
Well, I'm just concerned that perhaps other people are questioning may not aware of it, and for this level of expense to be used. You know, it's just this thing about, oh, we're using our money for this, and we're using our money for that, so I just feel they're more detail, definitely, in site visits, so us newbies can be aware of what's proposed. And yeah, perhaps a bit more consultation. I mean, maybe that's already being done, but you know, we're a new group here now. Just, you know, there might be some other more creative ideas out there. So do you see what I mean? We're all new blood, nearly. So
I just, sorry, through the chair, just conscious that we have put it in our annual plan, we've consulted on that, we've been out for a separate consultation. We have the principal of the school and the working group that established the cycle strategy. I understand that everybody's new and needs to find their feet and get up to speed. You know, and perhaps our cycle strategy should have been attached, you know, the actual document maybe should have been attached as part of the report to give people some background. Maybe that might have been useful in hindsight. Yeah, I just feel like the things that you're asking for, it's there. And another separate piece of consultation, that costs money as well. So we worry about what the project costs to deliver, but the due diligence is there in the background. I'm just trying to see if we can alleviate any fears here.
I think through the chair, the only change to what you said is the fact that consultation was not clearly in support of it. And that is, to me, a change from what was originally proposed. So we've had public consultation, we've now got some pushback from sectors, you know, a large number saying we don't want it, others saying we would like to have a change to the option. So I think we need to listen to that, and we need to look at any proposed options to see whether they are, you know, would be more favourable or receive greater support.
From what I understand of the consultation, the shared option wasn't even given to people, so that would be the alternate option, and that I see being in that range of them wanting a cycle strategy and fitting into that. And for me, I mean, 3.1 or 3.2, my thing is, well, can we justify the cost if we can do it cheaper? 3.2 to me would be, I suppose, my ideal, because it's a lot cheaper and would fit better in our budget. But then it comes down to, yeah, the safety of it. So that would be my difference. I would want to know a little bit more about the differences.
Through the chair, so can we just look, I've got on the screen a motion to defer the decision to a later meeting to allow members more time to consider the history, background regarding the proposal and consultation undertaken. Does that capture where you want to go with that, John?
Probably the only piece that I would add is to then come back with a final proposal at the.
Yeah, so defers the decision to a later meeting, so that.
Maybe with a time frame for that, just so it can be clear that we're not deferring it.
I don't know if we could give you a time frame quickly, unless Ed could make that kind of guarantee while he's online.
Through the chair, at this moment, we can probably get an updated report after Christmas. Unfortunately, George is leaving us, so it means that we're going to be a little bit short-staffed. but I think first meeting after Christmas, once that's scheduled, provided it's not in January, should be achievable.
February community board meeting.
February, yeah.
Maybe 2023? Probably not necessarily.
Is it clear?
In the draft, I'd like to see the word proposal in the plural. So that's, so if you can still consider the proposals plural, not just the first proposal.
Okay, so then I put that motion forward.
Perfect.
Okay, I put the motion
Oh,
forward.
sorry, we've got a mover, John. Can we get a seconder
I'll
before we
second.
put that through? Thank you. No, you can do
Okay,
that.
so I put
Sorry.
the motion forward. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Unopposed.
Opposed. Was opposed. That's carried.
Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3.1, the correspondence report. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move it.
Thanks, Rika, and a seconder.
Not Rika Dilly.
Oh, Dally, sorry. And
I
seconder.
know we're both young and good looking, but hey.
Through the chair, I'll just speak to that. So the items actually on the correspondence report are primarily relating to the previous board, just thanking them for their submission to the Freedom Camping bylaw, and a thank you from the Offbeat Theatre for the community grant. We have also received, and I haven't got it to table, but we have received a thank you from the eyesight for their community grant, which went towards producing some information maps. There's some in the centre, a little printout of it if anyone wants.
Did we get a mention on
see
it like we requested?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
So they thanked us very much, and that project is completed. We've also received just this morning a letter from a resident in Bruce Street in regards to the Meadow Drive walkway that's just been concreted. We haven't actually, because it's come in literally a few minutes before the meeting started, staff haven't had time to actually read that and take that in and consider it, so that will get tabled at the next meeting. But just wanted to acknowledge that it has arrived. And we've also, as has been sent round to you previously, had the Hahe Residents and Ratepayers Association letter regarding the bollards. Now it is an operational issue, and I just wanted to see that we may not have him available. I was hoping that Derek might be available to speak to it, but if he's
requesting him to join the meeting.
Oh, okay, we'll just request and see if he is available. If not, we'll be asking him to come back with some information from the operational standpoint at a later time. Dean, did you want to speak to that?
Just through the chair, Derek sent an email about 15 minutes ago saying that he couldn't hold it any longer. And
sorry, I didn't see that.
To travel to another meeting. It was intended that he would address the meeting this afternoon.
Okay, in that case, I'm just tabling the letter. We've heard the public forum speakers on that. It is operational, so I would be asking the operational team through our parks team to provide a response at some point.
Through the chair, can we just get a level of understanding that bollards generally need some consultation? I think, you know, this is whether it should or shouldn't be there. I'm not debating that. What I'm debating is that this is the second time in a certain number of months that the board have been bombarded with emails with regards to bollards that the community aren't happy about. So some pre-warning, you know, signs, hey, we're going to do this, or whatever it may be, but just outcomes on getting people aware of changes happening via a bollard is not great, our track record. And is that something from a staffing perspective that can be talked about, how they can better handle?
We can certainly pass that comment on. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
That would just be a little bit of feedback from someone who, I think in like the last 3 meetings, there's been 2 meetings that have been really heavily bollard focused. So that's just a bit of feedback.
Yeah, certainly, and thank you to the chair. Thank you for that. We'll pass that comment on.
And I think, through the chair, I do understand, and, the conversation I had with Heather about, if there was consultation on every bollard in the ward, we'd never get anywhere. But I think right in the middle of a boat, kayak, sea legs, access way was always going to cause consternation on a steep beach that doesn't have a purpose-built boat ramp of any description. That one, yeah, it just seems obvious to me that would have blown up, and it did.
Through the chair, so if it was obvious that it was going to be a blower, shouldn't it be consulted on?
That's my point, yes, yeah.
And consultation doesn't have to be, it can just be that there's a sign up for a few weeks saying that this is going to be a change in the way we operate.
Some
It doesn't have to be, letters to every household, because it costs a lot of money to do consultation. But just engagement of some sort, talking to the ratepayer groups.
Put a sign up.
But talking to the ratepayer groups, whatever it might look like, I just think letting people know prior to the event.
Email to the chair at Hahe would be a good start, I think.
Yeah.
So just through the chair, yes, staff will follow up on that. There will be a focus on the level of stakeholder analysis and engagement. We heard this morning some comments around it not being appropriate. We need to give staff the chance just to look at what they have done and how they did go about that piece of work. And so we'll certainly fill you in, but we will we'll look at whether that analysis was right and whether it was appropriate.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Dean.
Just give a second, please.
Can we have a second for the motion, please? For the report, please?
You can put the motion forward.
Oh, yeah. Put it on.
Do you want me to put it back?
The Mercury Bay Community Board receives the Mercury Bay Community Board correspondence report. Report date is the 26th of October 2022. Received the attached and tabled documents. I put the motion forward. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried. Okay. Item 4.1, the 2023-2024 annual plan. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move.
Darling and Bess. I've got Speaker Dean.
Oh, we've got
Sorry. Thought he was stepping in for this one, so I wrote the wrong name down.
Oh, yes.
Tēnā koutou, ko Kate Lewis, tako toko ingoa. My name is Kate, work in our policy and planning team. Part of my role is to help coordinate the annual plan and our long-term plan processes. I live here in Whitianga, so it's lovely to be able to be here face-to-face and talk with you today. In front of you on your agenda, you've got a report on the annual plan. It has quite a bit of detail in it. If through the chair it'd be okay, I thought I might spend this time to talk a little bit about our annual plan and long-term planning cycle and what we have identified as some differences coming up for this next annual plan and the timing for that.
Cool.
Okay, so our current long-term plan was adopted at the end of June last year in 2021 and it took effect from the 1st of July, so the start of our financial year. Our long-term plan contains at least 10 years worth of information and a long-term plan is reviewed every 3 years. In year one of a long-term plan, it includes the annual plan information for that year. In years 2 and 3, we have to produce an annual plan, a separate annual plan to the LTP, but that gives us the opportunity to make adjustments to reflect real life rather than what was forecast. Where those adjustments are significant from what was forecast in our long-term plan, then we must consult on those differences. Year 4 of that cycle, we're doing a new long-term plan. The long-term plan contains a lot more information than an annual plan. We've already started the process for developing our long-term plan 2024. That's a separate topic. So this annual plan, we've identified, I'll go back. In 2021-22, so that first year of our long-term plan, we had COVID lockdowns, we had supply chain demand issues, which had some pretty big impacts on our CAPEX program that financial year. That's having continued roll-on effects, so each financial year, year 2 and year 3, the differences when you look back to what we had forecast in the long-term plan get bigger and bigger. So that's one aspect to consider. Another item that's been identified as a big difference for this coming annual plan will be changes in our solid waste activity with the curbside rubbish collection, particularly around how that is paid for. So that's likely to be a consultation point. All the differences we assess against our significance and engagement policy, which gives us a guide on how to engage and what's appropriate level of engagement for that matter. We look at each individual difference, but we also look at all the differences as a whole, which often comes through as that estimated rating impact and how that changes from what was forecast. So for our next annual plan, we'll be taking the information back through to council in the new year around what the budgets are looking like and some options for consultation. Then there will be the deliberation process where council make those decisions before adopting the annual plan, and it must be adopted before 1 July 2023, which is the year to which it relates, which then allows us to set our rates for the year. Yeah, so that was my little synopsis on it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
No questions?
Yay.
Okay. The Mercury Bay Community Board receives the Mercury Bay Community Board action, annual plan, the 2023-2024 annual plan report dated the 31st October 2022. I put the motion forward. All those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried.
Just through the chair, I highly recommend having a look at the annual plan and perhaps contacting Kate directly or the community board members contact Esther.
Come through Heather.
Okay.
The annual plan has also been uploaded into the elected members information resolve as well, so it's
fantastic.
accessible for you.
Cool. Yeah, it's worth having a look at and trying to understand.
Action schedule.
Really
happy to keep going.
Yeah, it should be quick. Okay, so item 5.1, Mercury Bay Community Board action schedule. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? We've got Rita.
I'll second it.
No one talking on that one?
So just open for questions.
Open for questions.
I have a question on the action schedule in relation to the public forum relating to introduction of CARP. It's got the status as closed. What does that mean?
I believe the status is closed. Sorry, I'm just trying to make it big enough so I can actually see the words on my screen. The action that came to the community board and it was put on the schedule was to investigate that, and it's now been passed on, so the governance process of it has closed.
Oh, okay.
And in the background, the staff are still investigating that request.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so closing it was essentially closing our responsibility of having passed it.
Just to carry on from that, it's not an ongoing update, the action schedule, it's just a report back. That's the action done essentially.
So if you want some background on that?
No, but just following on from the grass clamp, we have said it's closed. We had people come and speak to the board. How will we know when they have been communicated to? Do you see what I mean? I sort of see, even though we pass it on to staff, from the board's perspective, when will we know that it's closed with the folks that take the time to come and see us?
So it probably needs a little bit more attention. No, it needs probably a little more comment, just saying it was closed because this is where it's at the moment.
So
the chair, would you like to add another action to it to request staff come back to the board with the outcome?
So for us, when we're out and about and contacted and stopped and people said, hey, I came and presented to you 3 months ago about silver carp or grass carp, and I go, oh, it's closed. That means it's left here and it's got. I'm just trying to understand the process.
I guess it comes
so how will we know that that loop has been closed with the folks?
So through the chair, I guess that comes back to what is the purpose of the action schedule, and maybe that's a question for Esther, being that it's her report. Is it just to capture that comment that came to the board and then it's been passed on, and you can be assured that we are working on that, and the people that came to this board are being kept in the loop of where we're at. With that, we actually have had an environmental consultant.
And staff should continue to keep you in the loop.
So, and that staff should continue to keep you in the loop, but it's just whether or not that should be captured continually in that action, or trusting that it's carrying on. So it's like, what level is that action schedule? Is it literally to say we've passed it on?
Through the chair, an action like that, because the action schedule has been working fantastically well, and I've really appreciated that, because you can see where the follow-up is on public forum and things like that. I think one like that, you know, governance is posed, consultant working on it, update on the decision expected in the new year, something like that, because it's not, the issue isn't closed, but I totally understand from a governance point of view that our involvement has been handed over to the right people to deal with.
So it'd be fair to say it needs more comment before closing.
Yeah, just a bit of comment, and just maybe that an update will be brought to the board, because I had that conversation with Tony yesterday about the grass cut, and he said, God, where's that at? So it's like, yeah, just keep us in the loop, just to know that we're going to get some feedback on that.
So like someone came along and said, hey, we bought the grass we need to use. Where is it at now? Do I just say closed? That doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Dean?
No, just talking about people on the street. that are
Absolutely,
preaching.
yep, I hear you.
Yeah. Through the chair, your comments are heard. One of the things that we can do is add a topic to the other information updates, which is the other alongside the
at the end of the work program.
And the work program.
at the end of the work program. So if there are topics of ongoing interest and you wanted to remain there, then that's another way to do it.
We could move it
So
across.
we completed it as an action on the action
Isn't that
table.
messy though, because it then sits under the work program?
But if, just through the chair, if it's something that has been accepted by operations that it's a piece of work that they will do, then actually the action is completed and it becomes a piece of work that is remain interested in.
And I think there's a high interest, because as you can imagine, people are very fearful, and we had that conversation. We had a really good kōrero at the board about people's understanding of carp raises really nerves around invasive species in native environments. So I think there is a high level of interest, and I'd love to see it on that general reporting form, and to find out what the consultant comes back with. So that's a good idea, Dave. Thank you.
No further questions?
I do. And it's not really of the action schedule, but members' reports is gone. Off our order paper.
Yep, through the chair, I believe they have been removed at direction from our CE, but I can get some information after the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Esther.
That'll be helpful. So how would we share in this meeting? Or we're not going to share?
I believe a lot of the topics that get raised are general operations, RFS's topics, or there is a section at the start of the meeting normally for members to raise items on the agenda, which is where you can raise a very, if you want to talk about a meeting that you attended, etc., it could become part of that, but it would have to be for a good reason to sort of to discuss that.
Through the chair,
something we can get.
I've looked at that run sheet and I thought, oh, maybe because everyone was being sworn in today, then they couldn't report as a member because they weren't a member yet, technically. But personally, I found the members' reports really useful, because it was an informal part of a formal meeting, but it was an opportunity to kōrero and perhaps give someone like Dean or Heather or yourself the opportunity to perhaps even have something put on the next agenda. So I'd really like, so what they were like for you guys, if you watched a meeting, was just an opportunity for people to say, I've been to this meeting and this is what I heard, or this is, there's some angst in the community about cycle paths. It was just, I thought that was a very valuable part of what we were
Yeah,
doing.
so I have some very practical things that I wanted to ask of staff, and now it's like, do you go and email? I'm just trying to think how we operate now without members' reports.
We can get some feedback, like I said, from the CE, but it's also, you do have informal corridors that you can start discussing those types of things with staff at. But again, we need to get some information back from the CE on a decision on that for you.
That'd be awesome, Esther, thank you.
So the Mercury Bay Community Board receives the Mercury Bay Community Board action schedule reported dated the 26th October 2022. Put the motion forward. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried. I declare the 16th of November 2022 meeting of Mercury Bay Community Board closed at 11:26 a.m.
Well done.
Well done, Christine.
Well done.
Very nice.
Well done.
Very good.